And we are today going to be talking about engaging your full team in the conversation around Pick.Click.Give. And I always like to just start with some fundamentals on fundraising as we wander into Pick.Click.Give. It's no different than the rest of the rules that govern our work. So with that, I'll just jump in here. So those of you familiar with Foraker know that it's very hard for us to have a conversation about fundraising without having this picture in front of us. And the other conversations that we've had with Pick.Click.Give, we've been putting this picture up as well. So this is a visual to just let us all remember that the request is just a piece of our conversation, whether we're using the request in the form of Pick.Click.Give or we're using other asking strategies. The request is just one piece of that, and a critical piece, but just one piece of it. So when we talk about full engaging your board and staff and volunteers in Pick.Click.Give, it's important to remember that they can be engaging in all sorts of ways, not just in the request around people making their gift through Pick.Click.Give. They can also be involved once you get your list. They can be involved in the recognition stage, and they certainly can be involved on the front end in terms of planning and setting goals and doing that front end research work, and also around the communication with your folks about what difference the money makes. How does that work? How does that relationship work between the donor and the organization in terms of making a difference in your community? So those are all the ways that we can communicate, and we put that under the heading of relationship building, both listening and communicating out. So again, when we're having this conversation today, we're not just talking about the getting them involved in the asking part. We're really thinking about more broadly than that, about getting them involved at all the different stages in the conversation. I'm sure many of you have engaged your boards in lots of ways, and most recently we've been a good handful of folks have been calling on nonprofits involved in Pick.Click.Give and encouraging the organizations to set some goals around Pick.Click.Give and to set expectations about how Pick.Click.Give will fit into your overall fundraising strategies. And hopefully some of you, at least on this got a call, and if you haven't, then we do encourage you to do that, and I'll give you some examples of that as we go. So and again, use that chat bar, or let us know if you've got questions along the way in this conversation. So I am a big believer that fundraising is a team sport, and that the team requires lots of participation at lots of different levels by lots of different people. And so again, the goal of, if you're the lead staff person or the lead board member involved in fundraising in your organization, the job is to help everybody find their place on the team and work to engage them in a way that really works for them. When we talk about our team, everybody's going to be working with a different set of options here. Not all of our organizations have staff, but when we talk about the team, here are certainly some options that we'd be looking at in terms of our full team. So of course we have our board of directors, and we could be talking about the board as a whole, or some of you may just be talking about a subcommittee of your board. We know, of course, the board is legally and fiscally responsible for the organization, but that doesn't mean that they roll out of bed in the morning and just become fabulous at fundraising. So the boards that are actually engaged in any sort of fundraising effort anywhere in the cycle have gotten a lot of support and some good training and some you generally have a good plan to work from. So it's a very rare board that just wakes up in the morning and is great at it all by themselves. So certainly engaging the volunteers, putting them on your board committees, and maybe you have just a separate Pick.Click.Give strategy committee of your board. That would be great if you did, or maybe it's part of an overall fundraising committee that's going on, or maybe your whole board, depending on its size, is having this whole conversation. So every one of the groups on this call has a different set of folks on their team, and again, the goal is to maximize everybody's participation. Certainly some of you on this call are staff and have staff on your team, and we certainly love to see the staff involved in fundraising, and usually you're on the front front end of those conversations and in terms of the strategy and the support of the board and the support of the volunteers. I have all staff on your team, not because many of them won't have it in their job description to be a part of Pick.Click.Give or any other fundraising effort. But of course, without their work, without their good efforts on delivering mission and doing the front work and playing the administrative role and answering the phone and doing all that wonderful stuff that they make, that's making mission work, we would have no reason to raise money. So making sure that all of your staff feel like they are empowered to be ambassadors and to have great customer service and to really feel like we're treating our donors like our customers and really providing that follow through and that conversation and that credibility and that accountability is a full staff effort. So seeing them as part of your team rather than siloing off any of this is really important. And in terms of Pick.Click.Give, especially because this is such a grassroots effort, engaging all of your staff in the process around being an ambassador for not just the program, but about including your organization in that program it can be a really easy step. And it can also, for some organizations, take a lot of work. So again, everybody's dealing with a different team here, but you all have an opportunity to mobilize at that grassroots effort, which starts generally at home, and home in the organization is the board and the staff. So, and that may just look as simple as getting everybody to talk about it at a staff meeting, or having everybody have it in their email signature. And if you're like most nonprofits, you're sending out zillions of emails a day, and boy, that just starts to multiply all the way around. So it can be those simple things, or it could be much more strategic and more planful, and all of those all the way up through the board conversation. So again, every group's doing it just slightly differently. But definitely that's who we're talking about when we're putting people on your team. I have a quick list of my own, and I'll start with that. And first and foremost, of course, that our best askers are our best listeners. And so making sure that you're creating opportunities to hear from your donors and understanding why they might choose a strategy like Pick.Click.Give, what's important to them, what trust do they need to build with you in order to choose you off that list, what other strategies they might be thinking about, how maybe Pick.Click.Give is just one way that they're going to give to you this year, but maybe they're going to give to you in lots of other ways, helping them feel like there's more to the conversation than just giving, but then helping them feel connected. So lots of ways that you can be a really good listener with your Pick.Click.Give donors. Of course, when you're talking to them, hopefully you're the right person to be talking to them because you are clearly connected with your passion and your heart to the mission of the organization that you're talking with them about. And that is always a true sign of someone that's going to be good at this role. Being able to answer those critical questions. And in Pick.Click.Give, that's not just answering the questions about your organization and why it matters, but also being able to answer some basic questions about the program just in order to build trust about the process. And the Pick.Click.Give website is great. It has lots of great resources there for potential and current donors to help do that. So you don't have to be an expert here, but just make sure you've got some of the basics. I don't really mean you personally, although that is a critical piece around being honest, but what I really mean is that your organization is a good steward of people's money and you have a track record and a reputation around that. And because so much of Pick.Click.Give is an online experience, almost all of it is an online experience outside of the direct conversations that you're having with people. It is pretty customary these days to see websites have at least one page of their website devoted to transparency and accountability, and so thinking about how you can connect your donors to your pieces of information on your website about your ways that you're being a good steward of people's money, and if that's because you have a great code of ethics or a good accountability page on your website, making sure you're connecting those dots or helping people feel connected. And again, the Pick.Click.Give website has an opportunity for you to explore your own organizational profile up there as well. And I'd just be focusing on how you are a good steward of people's money in that area. Of course, making your own gift through Pick.Click.Give is an awesome way to help be good at raising money, to ask people to join you rather than asking them to do it for you. Please, everybody should already be on Pick.Click.Give and doing this process before you're asking other people to do it. That's a critical step for sure. First of all, you want to know how great it feels to do that process, and you want to be able to share your own experience, and you want to know, you want to be able to answer questions about what that experience is like if people have those questions. And then, of course, at some point you have to be willing to ask people to take that, make that commitment, and if we all know that if we don't ask people to take that, do that call to action, take that next step, then they're not very likely to do it. The number one reason people don't give is that they're not asked. We always like to remind people again that the reason that people don't give again is the only thing that ever happened to them is that they were asked for money. So just remembering that the relationship cycle is a full cycle, not just the ask. But definitely the ask has to happen, and getting some people on your team to participate in that is definitely part of the process. My list is perfect as intentionally incomplete, and it's that way because I encourage you to take this list back to your organization and look for really good examples of people's behavior and celebrate them as a way, as a component that everybody can utilize in helping the organization be successful. It's a very rare organization that doesn't have all of these qualities in some part of your team. And maybe people haven't expressed these qualities as a part of fundraising, but certainly they are, and helping people reframe sometimes about what is or isn't fundraising can be helpful for lots of organizations. There's a lot of myth busting to be done about fundraising, and often people don't feel really great about it. And when we really celebrate what it really means, which is about celebrating relationships and getting people connected to the causes that they really care about, it can start to feel a whole lot better. So specifically, when we talk about the board, engaging your board in fundraising, and specifically Pick.Click.Give, there are really 4 ways that we see the board's role in development. And these, of course, your board members are all volunteers here. They certainly, and we'll just walk quickly through each of these 4 areas. Again, we talked about, how your board can play a role around on the governance piece, or around creating some integrity, accountability, transparency. They certainly can play a role there. And again, Pick.Click.Give is such an online experience that it's very likely people are going to your website and checking you out, or they're going to look for you in GuideStar, they're going to look at your 990, and the more you can just be transparent about all those things, the better you're off your position, your organization. You certainly can live your policies if you haven't created all the policies to manage financial giving in your organization. There are some key policies that your board can be your board can play a role on, and those certainly will have an impact again in the credibility factor as your donors not only make gifts through Pick.Click.Give but make gifts in other ways as well. And again, just engaging your board in how they can be good stewards of people's money and helping them talk about bringing that conversation to the fore with your board. Of course, they are also responsible for the financial integrity and health of the organization, and so some things that we're looking for, of course, is just an active board overall, really great at attendance and engagement, that they would rate themselves as highly engaged board members, and of course, the other critical piece of that is an active finance committee. And again, maybe this is where the fundraising piece is living for your organization, or maybe it's living in a separate ad hoc task force or standing committee of your board, but definitely your finance committee has a role in this conversation around goal setting, and whether you create a line item in your budget around Pick.Click.Give, both on the revenue and the expense side, or how you manage that, those conversations can actually really start to resonate early on in the finance committee. And then, of course, the board just plays a leadership role overall. It's fabulous to have a champion on your board who really embraces Pick.Click.Give as a method, as a successful strategy and method in fundraising. Really having them be the role, the sound, peer-to-peer sound back to the board can be such a more successful strategy than having the staff talk to the board about it. So if you can find that internal champion on the board, highly recommend that strategy as well. Of course, we want our board members to all be donors through Pick.Click.Give, so encouraging your board members to model great behavior by seeing that as part of their gift giving. Maybe many of you may use a pledge form during the year to help your board members make that 100% financial board commitment every year, and having that opportunity for them to fulfill their pledge, or at least a portion of their pledge of their yearly gift by using Pick.Click.Give is an excellent strategy, and I would really celebrate that and have your board be able to tell stories about that, and maybe even celebrate that story in a newsletter or a blog post, or some sort of communications technique that you might be utilizing in your organization. Really getting people to tell the story of, why they chose the and story. I pick, click, and gave to this organization, and I also participated with this organization in this way and this way and this way and this way. Those can be really fun stories to share. And again, those peer-to-peer stories are so powerful. Really, again, having them celebrate that participation can be a critical piece there. Their next responsibility is around helping be volunteers, of course, and where our goal here is 100% participation in helping to raise resource. And again, some of them will participate again by in all the circles of the ways. Some of them will do recognition, and some will do planning, and some will do relationship building. In our last newsletter that just came out a week ago, Dennis McMillan, our CEO here at Foraker, he wrote his newsletter article about all the different ways that board members and volunteers could participate in helping people get more excited about Pick.Click.Give, and I've just recapped some of those examples that we put in that newsletter. And so one of the first suggestions we put out there was to actually have a calling process where board members and volunteers were actually calling very good prospects or current donors and asking them to use Pick.Click.Give as a giving strategy for them. And the newsletter article goes much more into this, but I just outlined some of the key points that Dennis made in his article about some things to remember. And for those of you that just didn't get a chance to read that article, that's on our website, but I just summarized it here for you as well. Again, helping people tell their story is a critical piece of this. So we'll be better donors if we have our own donor story. And we'll be able to help other people be donors. So making sure that, I wouldn't script it out word for word for people, but I would put a set of bullet points out there that starts with having that person that's going to do the calling imagine what their own story is, or have their own story, and what those key parts of that story are, and making sure that we are clear about who we're calling. No one-size-fits-all calling here, so personalize as much as possible. Make sure you're pronouncing that person's name right. Make sure you know their past giving history to the organization if you're calling current donors or even lapsed donors. Helping that caller be prepared for those common questions that come up. And again, Pick.Click.Give has a great FAQ section, a frequently asked questions section on the website for those, but you can prime some of those things up if you know, or certainly Heather or Suzanne and I can also help with that. And again, be sure that people know that one of those key lovely little secrets of Pick.Click.Give is that even if you've already filed, you can go back in and still pick, click, and give to organizations throughout the filing period and even a little bit beyond. So making sure that people know that that's an opportunity for them if they run into a caller that's already completed their process. I would recommend, just because this can feel a little overwhelming for folks, so I would create a timeline around this. I'd create a stop date and a start date and a stop date. And again, I would just remember that money is not the destination here. The destination is around relationships, and which is an ongoing conversation, and that this is just one of many times that you'll be interacting with them. And Pick.Click.Give is just it's got a time frame of its own here. So making sure that you're just doing this in a timely fashion. So that was one way of participating. Here are a few more that we offered. Again, we talked about asking your whole team, your board, your volunteers. Many of you have volunteers who are really just unpaid staff. They're just they're so part of your family. They're absolutely as invested as you are, and inviting them to put the Pick.Click.Give electronic link into their signature, which exponentially just grows and grows the awareness piece, and just lets people know really what you care about and why people might want to join you. Certainly, if you haven't done so already, Pick.Click.Give should be part of your homepage on your website. And many of you are using different social media channels, so creating that opportunity through all the channels that you're using. again, stories, we generally say stories, not statistics, and feelings, not facts. And what we mean by that is that the stories are so much more powerful than just rattling off a bunch of statistics at people. So, and the feelings about why it matters and how it feels and what difference it makes is going to be way more motivating than just all the facts about the impact of your work. So a good little mantra is stories, not statistics, and feelings, not facts. We know that when you're writing a grant or when you're talking to the government, you might need both of those things or all four of those things. But for this, we really want to focus in on the person to person, the really human connection of all of this work. And then, of course, if you've got some willing folks, you can get them to do the personalized note and accessing your database of maybe the top 100 people in your database that have the most potential to give. That's a great strategy. Or maybe you want to take the last 100 donors that were lapsed, the people who you lost from 2013 that didn't give a gift. Maybe you want to connect with them through around and give them Pick.Click.Give as a strategy. I've always believed that Pick.Click.Give is a great strategy if you don't, for donors who have never tried to give, if you don't have online giving, this is a great way to get people excited about your online giving potential with Pick.Click.Give. So there's a question on the chat bar that says, how do you address board members who hate fundraising and love the organization's mission? So I'll tell you some of you on this call have heard me say this story before, but I'll share with you my favorite board member story about that, and then we can talk some more about it as well. But my favorite board member story is I had a board member, I've been raising money for about 25 years now, and I had a board member who really just hated fundraising. He'd stand up at board meetings and talk about how much he hated fundraising. He really hated the word, all the language of fundraising he really disliked, and he was really caught up in the language piece. That was really a key that would just kind of set him off. And the funny thing about this board member is that he was really great at raising money. He just didn't want to call it fundraising. The language bothered him. So one day he came up to me and he said, Laurie, I hate fundraising. I just really hate it. And I said, well, really, tell me about that. And he said, well, I don't mind taking people to coffee and talking with them about why the organization matters and talking with them, and listening to them about why the organization matters to them, and then, helping them make their gift. And I said, well, great, let's stop calling it fundraising and let's start calling it coffee. And so, I really think that if you go back to that list that I shared earlier about what makes a person good at raising money, and you can help people kind of recognize that many of the things that their passion for the organization, their belief in the organization, those things aren't mitigated by the word fundraising. In fact, fundraising is just, you don't have to call it that. You can call it coffee. You can call it Pick.Click.Give. You can call it, I like to think of it as a social investment. I like to think of it as an opportunity rather than an obligation. I like to think of it as a get to, not a have to. So I think part of it is the way that we use our language around fundraising. There's a lot of negative language out there in the world around fundraising, and a lot of myths that need to be broken around fundraising. And so I would start, this is a question from Lisa, and what I would say, Lisa, is I would start a conversation about what difference the money makes in your mission. What would you be able to do differently if you could raise $10,000 through Pick.Click.Give? What difference would it make? What difference would it make if the organization got connected with 20 donors from Pick.Click.Give that you'd never had before? What difference would it make in your organization if fill in the blank? And I would have more conversations about that and less conversations about the word fundraising. And I would really do your best to bring a change in language that's more about the difference that the money makes than about the money itself. And so maybe that's helpful. So hopefully that was helpful. And I am a really firm believer that language makes a difference. And it's one of the reasons that I can get excited about a strategy like Pick.Click.Give, because it really is just an opportunity for people to make the investment in the things that they really care about. And it's a wonderful way to help people do that connection. And again, how you frame that with the board makes a big difference. So again, there's other ways to participate, and we've tried to offer you some of those examples. Again, there's that website example, some other examples here on your screen as well. And I welcome through the chat function any more feedback that you have about what you're doing now, or work that you've tried as well. Again, one of the things that we tried to do as well is call many of your organizations and get you to set a goal. And hopefully your board did that. And again, if that goal does not have to be money goal, it can be a numbers of people that you get to participate. So remember that the goal of Pick.Click.Give is to increase the amount of people becoming donors, so increasing the number of donors, increasing the number of dollars that people are giving, so increasing the amount of money that people are giving to nonprofits, and raising the level of awareness about individual philanthropy in the state of Alaska. So, you can, while it's fun to set a financial goal, it's also really fun to set a people goal as well. How many new donors do you want to reach out to? How many of your existing donors do you want to see an additional gift from? That will help you frame your conversation, and you can really engage you can engage your volunteers in those conversations about what motivates them to do, to give in two ways, what motivates them to give in one way, just through Pick.Click.Give. You can engage the board in those conversations, and again, but I would keep it at the opportunity, not obligation level of conversation, and I think you'll have much more willingness to participate. And here's that slide just about setting that goal. So we just shared that goal with you as well. So the final way that we can think about volunteers and board members participating overall is, again, seeing Pick.Click.Give as part of a tool in your overall fund development plan. They certainly are. The board should be having a plan and approving it, and that's often a staff-led function, but the board certainly would be approving that high-end plan, and certainly making sure that Pick.Click.Give is a part of those strategies is a great way to see their participation in the effort. At the end of the day, no matter who's on your team, helping people, we can all do our best to help people be successful, and I think of it as setting people up for success rather than hoping that they just don't fail. And again, in fundraising, because it's a team sport, we really need support from each other to make it successful. I've often been known to say that if I put all the staff members in one room and all board members in another, and I ask them what their biggest concerns are, the staff members will say, oh, the board's not raising enough money, and the board members will say, oh, the staff's not raising enough money. And so, really, instead of seeing each other as not on the same team, seeing each other as support can really make a big difference. And part of that support is helping people find their strength and drawing on all their existing skills rather than focusing on what they don't know, and really breaking down some of those tasks. So we put out some ideas here about some ways to participate, and rather than giving every board member 20 people to call, give them 2 people to call and ask them to call 2 people, and when they're done calling 2 people, ask them to call 2 more, and then maybe 2 more, and now, between now and March they will have called 10 people, but you didn't give it to them all at the same time. That can be a very successful strategy. Some people would rather do just about anything than call people on the telephone. So maybe it's that they're going to participate through some sort of social media piece, or maybe they're going to participate through writing something in your newsletter, or helping them maybe a customized letter. So finding people the space to participate within their comfort zone is absolutely critical. And that's a two-way street. That person has to be willing to say what their comfort zone is, and you have to be able to both ask and listen to their answer. Not everybody on your board and volunteers and staff have a lot of time to give, again, so breaking it into small pieces is super critical. Helping people understand up front that their participation is expected, and then again giving them the tools for some successful follow through. Lots of people are frustrated that it's not a team sport, but then when we ask them, well, what tools did you put out around expectation? Did you put it in the job description of being a board member? Did you put it out in a board meeting? Did you put it out to your staff? Is it in their job descriptions? Then they all say no, no, no. Well, if we don't have expectations out there, it's really hard to see the follow through. Focusing on the impact that the organization will have rather than just focusing on the money. And let's see, I got another question from the audience here. Okay, so somebody's just chatting about how they all agreed to make 6 asks, and I think that's great. And again, what I would say is some board members will be, they'll have time and energy for 6, and some will have time and energy for 10, and some will have time and energy for 2. And so sometimes it's not always about everybody doing exactly the same number. Sometimes it's just all about everybody participating. And so, in the wash, if the sum total is, you know 30, then it all gets done. So just making sure we're watching people's time frame and comfort zone, to make sure that we can have good follow through there. So a couple other, just as we kind of circle to the final bit of time here, just thinking about who else is on our team. Some of you have development staff, some of you are development staff on this call, and I always like to offer this as a myth-busting moment, that just because you have staff doesn't mean that they're the only people on the team. So making sure you've got that full everybody's on the team there. Okay, and sorry, I'm just taking a break here to answer some questions here. So somebody's posting that they're having a difficult time getting their board members to put a link on their email signatures. And did I have any suggestions about that? And I guess the question that I would offer before offering a suggestion is to ask more, just to kind of peel the onion a little bit on the conversation and ask, what is the dilemma? For some companies, there's probably some rules there around that, and so there's probably some office policy. So it may just not be their own resistance. There may be some company resistance. Fair enough. And I would offer that there are lots of companies who are financially supporting the overall efforts of Pick.Click.Give, and so again, making sure we kind of circle back there, because maybe there's a win-win there for the company and for the organization. It could be as well that maybe what they are resisting is just the company might be resisting is Pick.Click.Give for a specific organization. Maybe they would be open to just more Pick.Click.Give in a more general framework, just kind of support, kind of a rise the tide for everyone rather than just for one agency. So you can play with that, and even that will be beneficial. So again, because we're all in it together, the high tide for everyone email signature just about Pick.Click.Give may be a good strategy. But I would peel the onion a little bit, because it's hard to know just where the resistance might be. It could be a company resistance as much as it could easily also just be an individual resistance. I've heard more on the company side than I have on the individual side, and other people, feel free to jump in if you've had some success. So I would definitely peel the onion on that as well. And again, peer-to-peer might be helpful, or just an offline, and see if there's more of a personal thing going on. The next question someone's asking is, can they get the audio? And Heather, I'll have you jump in at the end of this class and help people figure out where they go to get my slides and all of that, because I know you're posting all of that stuff. So, and I know someone said I'm talking really fast, and I am. 45 minutes is not very much time to share all this stuff. So again, I'll post my email, and you guys can happily follow up with me if you've got questions. And again, if you want to use the chat function to share how if you've got some other strategies for this person who's writing about the email signature, feel free to jump in there as well. Okay, excellent. So those of you who are paid development professionals, you're sometimes it's lonely out there, and it can also often feel a little bit like a silo. And so, while your job is you play such a critical function there, I always like to remind everybody again that we've got a whole team here that we can bring into our world. And so I just offer you a few ways to avoid the mistake, and just helping people be on that team. And the funny thing is that frankly, the best askers are actually your board members, because they are just so passionate and committed to the organization, and nobody's making them do that. They just do that as they roll out of bed in the morning. That's how they wake up. And so that energy really brings a sense to the whole conversation around engaging donors that even though as staff we are also equally passionate, sometimes that volunteer just has that little bit of extra in the conversation because it's all just pure for the pure love of it all. And so again, just that whole piece of staff. If you've got other staff and consultants on your team, again, we're trying to set people up for success. And so some of the ways that we do that, certainly our role is helping our boards and helping others with other staff and consultants. We might be depending on our job function or our job title, we might be actually leading, but working in, I like to say kind of leading from behind often rather than that appearing to follow. I often say, the job of a development professional or executive director is, is to lead from behind and really empower the whole team in front of us. And again, not making busy work of it all, but really making sure that people really feel like it's meaningful. And for that to happen, really engaging people in that conversation about what difference it would make, I think it can be a really fascinating 5 minutes at a staff meeting or even a board meeting about, that whole conversation about the impact of what it would mean for us to be successful and what does success actually look like. I'm often, in all these years of fundraising, so surprised that at the end of the day, the budget is approved and there's a line item in there for Pick.Click.Give or charitable giving overall, and nobody's ever talked about, well, what difference would it make and why does it really matter? And just those conversations can have such a big difference on the way that we do our work. So I encourage you to do that. Helping people feel successful by giving them appropriate training and orientation. Again, very few people, fundraising is a profession. Very few people roll out of bed in the morning and are just fabulous at it. So helping people get the skills that they need in order to be successful. Letting them role play out. If you're going to try the phone calling set of ideas, helping people role play that and practice and giving them a safe space to try it out and be silly is great. And I strongly encourage you to do that. What are you looking for in your team? Of course, you're looking for people who absolutely believe in the organizational values. Don't have people out there talking about your organization that don't really believe in you. That's not what you're after. I would really focus in on. So many Pick.Click.Give donors are new to your agency, but they're not new to your cause. And one of my favorite statistics out there in the world right now is that. Baby boom generations coming forward, so the younger the donor, the more this tends to be true, is that they believe in causes, not necessarily agency. So they're not necessarily brand loyal like the older generations. They really believe in the causes. Like they might absolutely believe that they want to live in a world where there's music and culture in their community, but they may not know your organization. So they may scan the list for all the music and culture organizations and then just pick those organizations that they think resonate with that value around culture and music in their community. And that's how you may get a new donor through Pick.Click.Give, and that's really exciting. And then your job is to then help them connect those dots to saying you care about the cause and here's our agency response. And I think Pick.Click.Give is an excellent opportunity to start really cultivating those donors who connect with you initially because of cause and then come in and connect to mission after that. And again, that's really different than older generations, which really were connected to mission and then eventually got to the bigger cause. And so again, connecting up that conversation can be really exciting and a great opportunity for organizations. And then, of course, you're looking for that good fit in the organization and someone who really actually has the time, energy, or financial resource to participate, which is not everybody. So, of course, empowering your volunteer to participate. Here's just a few ways that you can do that, and please don't forget to say thank you and give them some great recognition and feedback. So incredibly critical. And my final thought for the day, and I'll hand it back over to Heather to wrap up, is I just tried to provide kind of the difference between a board and volunteer expectations, what you might think about, and then kind of staff participation and what you might think about. And you'll see, if you're staring at the slides today, you'll see some pretty good synergy there. We're looking for 100% participation from both boards, volunteers, and staff, but what that participation looks like will absolutely be different. And while we really encourage board members and volunteers 100% annual giving on the board and volunteer side, we would love that from the staff, but we talk about that differently. So you won't necessarily see that on my list, but I would love to see all staff participating through Pick.Click.Give for their organizations and beyond. I think that's an excellent mark of credibility and a definite vote of confidence for the organization and for the program overall. And my final thought of the day is just to make it fun. And if it's not fun for you, it's probably not going to be fun for everyone else. And for the person who said their board was really resistant to the word fundraising, I like to remind people that the word fun is the first 3 letters of the word fundraising. And if it is our job to keep it fun. And if it's not fun, it's probably not going to happen. So, and with that, I will hand it back to you.